Welcome, everyone. Good morning to those who are gathered here in the sanctuary and to all who are joining online today. We begin our service with a musical prelude by Scott DeVoe. Thank you, Scott. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Charlottesville. My name is Tori Goodlow. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm pleased to be weaving worship this morning with Rev. Tim Temerson, Music Director Scott DeVoe, and the UU Seville Choir. This sanctuary was built over 70 years ago on the homeland of the Monacan people and was once cared for by enslaved people from Africa and their descendants. We honor all who have dwelt here and all in our congregation whose lives led to this moment of our gathering. I invite us to take a moment to greet others. Those online may unmute and say hello, and those here in the sanctuary or social hall are welcome to greet your neighbors, especially those you may not know.
Wonderful time with my cousin and my uncle, and her farm is just magical and beautiful and simple, and I just love it. And I may just move up here. I may. I may just do that. I don't know. We're gonna go see my mom's grave after church. It's about an hour's drive, and go past my grandmother's old house and so on. So yeah, but it's lovely, and my cousins are great, and uncle is doing really well, and yeah, we're just having a lovely time. Oh. Hey, Bev.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Good.
We offer a special welcome to newcomers and invite you to join us for fellowship after the service in the social hall. Please feel free to use one of our red coffee mugs, which are for visitors, and we encourage you to stop by the connections table near the monitor in the social hall. Seating is also available in the social hall where there is a live stream of the service. Everyone is welcome in the sanctuary, but if you need a roomier space, the social hall can be a good option. Many thanks to all the folks helping us share worship, both here and online, our greeters, ushers, and hospitality and logistics team, and special thanks to our AV tech, the newly married Rachel Buckland, supporting the dual platform worship both online and here on Rugby Road. And now we have greetings from board member Renee Brett.
Good morning. It's good to see everyone here on this beautiful November morning. I'd like to welcome everyone here and on Zoom to welcome you, basically. So this month, there's a lot going on in our community. And one thing I would like to call out is that for the board meeting this month, I don't think it's too early to say, we will be combining November and December, and it will be December 13th. So there will be no board meeting in November because that falls on Thanksgiving. So it's great to see everyone. I will be out in the social hall after the service. You could see what's going on in our community through our website or speaking to any of the board members, but it's great to see everyone. Welcome.
Thank you, Renee. Here are our announcements this morning. Today begins our Season of Light art show featuring work from the UU Seville community. If your work is part of the show, would you please rise? Thank you so very much for enriching the beauty of our worship space. We are once again collecting donations of cleaning products and non-perishable Thanksgiving feast items for local community members in partnership with our good friends at Ebenezer Baptist Church. There is a donation bin in the hallway near the Edgewood Lane doors, and all donations must be received by next Sunday, November 12th. But beginning next Saturday, we will be hosting guests from Pacham and Summit House. We need volunteers to help on move-in and move-out days and to prepare and serve dinner November 25th through December 2nd. To sign up, please go to the link for the Sign Up Genius, which can be found in the Friday newsletter. Next Sunday at 12:15, we will offer our monthly newcomer circle. If you are new to UU Seville and want to learn more about us, please plan to join us for 30 minutes of relaxed conversation with Rev Tim and several lay leaders. Today is a children's worship Sunday, meaning the children will be sung out of the parlor in a few minutes. And all are welcome to join in refreshments and conversation today in the social hall following the service. And please feel free to help yourself to an apple from the altar.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Ooh. Wow. For our call to worship, I want to share these words. Tori and I would like to share these words with you. In this quiet hour, may our spirits be renewed.
May we be ready to extend our hands and receive the hand that is offered to us.
May we remember the principles that guide us and reflect upon things that give meaning to our lives, renewing our dedication to serve the highest that we know.
And may our minds be open to truth and our hearts receptive to love as we give thanks for this life we are so very blessed to share. Come, let us worship together. As Kim Curtis and Audrey Velk lights the flame of our chalice this morning, please join me in saying our unison chalice lighting words. We gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. And now we'll do our hand motions. One finger is the match, and here's our matchbook. We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. This is a church of the open minds. This is a church of the helping hands. This is a church of loving hearts.
All right. This is a setting of the 23rd Psalm by Bobby McFerrin, and it's dedicated to his mother.
The Lord is my shepherd, I have all I need. She makes me lie down in green meadows, beside the still Even though I walk through a dark and dreary land, there is nothing that can shake me. She has said she won't forsake me. I'm in her hand. She sets a table before me in the presence of my foes. She anoints my head with oil, and my cup overflows. Surely, surely goodness and kindness will follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in her house forever, forever and ever. Glory be to our Mother and Daughter and to the Holy of Holies, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
Loud Choir, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, that was transcendent, absolutely beautiful. We are so very grateful. And every Sunday I see you all up there, I keep thinking, they're growing, which is just wonderful. So thank you so much. So now, friends, I would like to invite you to sing our children out, and just to remind everyone that they'll be heading to the parlor. So let's join in singing our children out. Friends, as we enter our time of centering and sharing, I'd like to share some prayerful words from you, with you, from Elizabeth Nguyen, a wonderful Unitarian Universalist social justice leader. Let us be together in the spirit of prayer and meditation. God of mercy, Spirit who makes peace out of war, who wanders with refugees and keeps vigil with children at our border and all borders. Holy healer in hospitals and shelters, at schools, in homes, at weddings, really any place. May your love be a balm for all who hurt. May your truth be present in offices of power and in hearts of soldiers and civilians alike. Many times we've thought the arc was bending toward justice, Many times we saw it happen in our courtrooms and in streets, in the hearts of people creating their own liberation. Many times we've also doubted. For those of us this morning who doubt, who despair that brokenness and suffering and war may win, remind us of the small mercies, the tiny triumphs. Hope does dwell in this world. I'd like to now invite us into a brief time of silence and reflection. Amen. We had no submitted joys or sorrows this morning online, so we're now going to invite you to come forward to share or joy or sorrow in your life by placing a glass stone or stones in the water. Those online can type their joys or sorrows into the chat. Now I'd like to invite Angela Orbaugh from our pastoral care team to come forward and be a supportive presence during the ritual. And please know that Angela will be available for a few minutes after the service, right back there in the pastoral care corner, if you are in need of pastoral support or just need someone to listen this morning. And those online can contact the pastoral care team at pastoral@uucharlottesville.org. And may this ritual that we share most every Sunday, may it bring to our lives healing, comfort, and hope. Let us begin.
This community offers its love and support to what is closest to our hearts. Another way we show our care for one another is in sharing our financial gifts with our community and our congregation. Our social action collection for the month of November is for Birth Sisters of Charlottesville, and we are delighted to welcome Doreen Bonnet from Birth Sisters up here to tell us about their wonderful work.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us to come and share the work that we do. And by far, I absolutely want to thank each and every one of you and this entire congregation. I think this is the third year that we have received a gift from you. And we can't tell you how appreciative we are of that gift. So I wanted to share, well, first of all, Birth Sisters of Charlottesville. We are a doula collective made of women of color, supporting women of color in our community. And the reason we exist is because of the disparities between women of color, particularly Black women, compared to white women when giving birth. Black women are 2 to 3 times as likely to die or have pregnancy complications. And the same is for infant mortality as well. So that's why we exist. But I just wanted to give you an idea, some of the things that we've done with the funds that we have received from you. We've been able to support, since last year, over 60 women through their, supporting them through their pregnancy journey, prenatal, labor and delivery support, postpartum support. We've extended our postpartum program for up to a year. We support moms in something that's called the Welcome Womb Boutique, where people donate items and then clients in need come and they take them, what they need. And what's beautiful about that right now is that we're actually getting clients that are donating the things that they don't need and taking what they do need. So it's been reciprocal. We also have what's called a Clients Needs Fund. As you might imagine, there are a lot of challenges facing women as they give birth: poverty, domestic violence, a variety of things. So we began to notice that there's just some small financial challenges that they have. And so what we do with the Clients Needs Fund, sometimes somebody needs compression socks, sometimes they need diapers, sometimes they need postpartum supplies, sometimes they need a meal or groceries or a place to stay, so a hotel stay for a night until they can find a permanent place to live. So those are some of the things that we have used the money for. And we also have support groups for breastfeeding, and also just maternity Reiki that we offer to our clients, as well as baby sessions to clients. So we're doing a lot. And what I'm particularly proud of is that since our inception, we have not lost a mom, we have not lost a baby, and our birth rate for our babies have been above. We don't have any low birth weight among our babies, which is usually an indicator of future child. So we had probably 2 out of all the women that we serve. So it shows that the work that we're doing is actually making an impact. And so we really, really thank you for that. And there's also research that recently came out that says that when a mom has doula support in labor and delivery, it drastically reduces their, it's 65% their odds of getting postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety. Because we are seeing an uptick during that time period where moms actually commit suicide. And so, you know, we're literally saving lives. And so we're really proud of this, and we're really proud of the work we're doing. And we're so grateful for what you all are offering and the gifts that you offer to us every year. So thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. Rachel, will you please show us the social action slide for giving for those who would like to make a donation right now? Thank you. In addition to giving online, if you would like to give today with cash or check, please use the social action collection envelopes here in the sanctuary and place your offering in the collection plate. Please do not seal the envelopes as we reuse them. Along with our social action collection, each week we invite everyone into the spiritual practice of generosity by giving to the ministry of our congregation. Through your pledges and with the weekly Sunday morning offering, together our financial gifts and support sustain our congregation. This is our shared ministry. During the music that follows, you may choose to make your Sunday morning offering by using the text address or going to our website. Here in the sanctuary, you may place cash or checks in the collection plates as they are passed. Let us dedicate all of the many gifts we share with one another by saying, "We accept your gifts with gratitude. May we use them wisely for the highest good." Our reading this morning is titled "More Than We Deserve" by Robbie Walsh. I heard the second Brandenburg Concerto played in honor of Bach's 300th birthday, and I was swept away. I remembered a story about the people who send messages into outer space. Someone suggested sending a piece by Bach. The reply was, "But that would be bragging." Some say we get what we deserve in life, but I don't believe it. We certainly don't deserve Bach. What have I done to deserve the second Brandenburg? I have not been kind enough. I have not done enough justice. I have not loved my neighbor or myself sufficiently. I have not praised God enough to have earned a gift like this. Life is a gift we have not earned and for which we cannot pay. There is no necessity that there be a universe, no inevitability about a world moving toward life and self-consciousness. There might have been nothing at all. Since we have not earned Bach or crocuses or lovers, the best we can do is express our gratitude for the undeserved gifts and do our share of the work of creation. please rise in body or spirit and join in singing hymn number 205, Amazing Grace.
Beautiful, thank you. You may be seated. Well, good morning, everyone. It's very, very good to see you all. Great to be with you. I want to thank Tori for her help this morning. Thank you for sharing those wonderful words from Robbie Walsh. That meditation of Robbie's, and you hear a lot of them here on Sunday morning because Robbie's my guy, and he's my spiritual guy. And I think that particular one, More Than We Deserve, it is my absolute favorite UU meditation, and it is, in my view, the best discussion of grace that has ever been written by a Unitarian Universalist. And I would add, or anyone for that matter. Of course, I'm biased because Robbie's my spiritual teacher and mentor, and I've been very blessed by his presence and his words. And thank you all for singing Amazing Grace this morning. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that Amazing Grace is the most beloved and popular hymn in the history of American Christianity. I know every time I listen to it, I get caught up in the beauty of the music and in the lyrics that assure me that no matter how broken my life has become, and not being a Calvinist, I generally prefer broken rather than wretch or wretched, but no matter how broken we have become, there is something good, timeless in this world that journeys with us through dangers, that gives us courage and resilience when we are afraid, that helps us find our way home when we are lost. I don't know, I imagine some of you are familiar with the story of the writing of Amazing Grace. It's an 18th century piece. Originally was a poem written by a clergyman and poet named John Newton. What's really significant about Newton, or interesting, is that earlier in his life, he had played a key role in the international slave trade, captaining ships that were forcibly carrying newly enslaved people from the west coast of Africa to the Americas. A storm at sea that nearly capsized his ship led Newton to cry out for God's mercy and to convert to Christianity. Unfortunately, it still took him several more years working in the slave trade before he finally decided that enslaving human beings was in conflict with his newly found faith. Newton eventually left the slave trade and became an influential clergyman and spiritual writer. And to his credit, he did dedicate much of the rest of his life to abolishing the international slave trade and became a spiritual mentor for the leader of that movement, at least in the British Parliament, William Wilberforce. Now, while John Newton's contributions to abolishing the slave trade and to deepening what one might call Christian piety or spirituality are undeniable, Amazing Grace will always be his lasting legacy. While it certainly gained popularity in his home country, it was here in the United States, and especially among Christian evangelicals and so on in the 19th century, that led Amazing Grace to become such a powerful hymn. And that popularity and influence persists right up to today. While Amazing Grace is sometimes sung in times of joy and celebration, it is during moments of despair and loss that it seems to especially resonate and touch the soul. I'm sure many of you remember watching when former President Obama sang Amazing Grace at the end of his eulogy for the victims of the horrific mass shooting at the Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston, South Carolina. There's a picture of President Obama singing that song. In that remarkable moment, I think the then president reminded us to look for that reservoir of goodness that is beyond and somehow of another kind, which he called grace. And then he began to sing the hymn which has helped so many find their way back to healing and hope. I want to spend my time this morning exploring with you a little bit, what does grace mean? And especially, what does grace mean in this religion, Unitarian Universalism? We don't use the word grace as often as maybe we should, and it doesn't appear in our 7 principles. And although Amazing Grace is in our hymnal, it isn't sung very often in our services, and when it is, it's most frequently sung during memorial services. I'm not totally sure why grace doesn't appear in many of our sermons or services, but I think the beginning of an answer can be found in the simple fact that concepts like grace are often associated with one religious tradition, Christianity, and with one particular theological idea or assumption, namely belief in a transcendent God who dwells above and beyond. So let's just begin at the beginning here. The dictionary defines grace as unmerited divine assistance. Another definition states that grace is the love and mercy given to us by God because God desires us to have it, not because of anything we have done to earn it. Now, leaving aside the question of where grace comes from, it seems clear that grace most assuredly is a gift that we receive through no actions of our own. We don't earn or have to pay for or even necessarily deserve grace. Grace is indeed a gift that we receive without doing anything to earn it. a gift that sees us somehow through darkness and despair. And if we look at the lyrics from Amazing Grace, we see, I think, much of this same understanding. Grace is given to us in spite of our brokenness, and grace leads us safely home through our fear. And although God is not mentioned until the final verse, it is God's praise that is credited as being the source of grace. Now, as I said before, I think, from my perspective, that any discussion of what does grace mean, what's it about, and especially in this tradition, Unitarian Universalism, begins with Robbie's wonderful meditation. Now, he doesn't actually use the word grace, but I think what he's talking about is entirely about grace. Think for a moment about his experience listening to Bach's Second Brandenburg. As he listens to that amazing music, he can't help but feel that he has been given an incredible gift, a gift that so far exceeds anything he's ever done or deserved or given in his life. And realistically, what can one ever do to earn or deserve something as beautiful as Bach, as breathtaking as the Grand Canyon, or as magnificent as the birth of a child or a grandchild? As Robbie says, he hasn't been kind or just or loving enough to have earned something like Bach, but it was given to him anyway. And for that amazing gift, he feels so very grateful and so very blessed. I think that's what it means to experience grace. Now, maybe Bach isn't your cup of tea. That's okay. I'm guessing everyone in this room has experienced moments like that. Maybe you've been moved to joy or tears by a beautiful poem or a piece of music. Maybe by the scent of a flower or the beauty of a garden, by a walk in the woods or the smile on a child's face. Those moments of grace often come when we encounter something vast and awe-inspiring, or something that touches our hearts so deeply that we are indeed swept away. And as Robbie reminds us, we live in a universe that is overflowing with grace. Those undeserved gifts and blessings are everywhere and in every moment, and are actually built into the very nature of existence. As he says so well, life itself is a gift we haven't earned and for which we cannot pay. There's no necessity that there be a universe, no inevitability about a world moving toward life and self-consciousness. There might have been nothing at all. So part of my answer to the meaning of grace in Unitarian Universalism is simply this. We Unitarian Universalists most assuredly experience grace. We are touched by the beauty of those unearned gifts and blessings because we experience them in our own lives. And I think we also believe in a universe that is filled with grace. We believe that grace abounds, that grace is everywhere, and that grace is built into the beauty, the wonder, and the mysteries of life. And I use that word mystery very, very deliberately, because I think it points to something important about the way Unitarian Universalism understands the roots or sources of grace. In the definitions we usually encounter, and you heard earlier, grace is seen as a gift from God, and in some cases, even as evidence of God's approval. In theological terms, grace can be a sign of our justification or sanctification in the eyes of God. In Unitarian Universalism, I think I'm on fairly firm ground here in saying that the ultimate source of grace is indeed a mystery. Grace may indeed be a gift from a transcendent God who resides above and beyond, or perhaps within us. We really don't know. You know, maybe precisely where grace comes from really isn't the most important question. What I think is most important is that those awe-inspiring and life-enriching gifts and blessings, they're real. They bring beauty and meaning and hope to our lives. Listen to how Anne Lamott, great spiritual writer, many of you know Anne Lamott, I assume. Listen to what she says. She says, "I do not at all understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are, but doesn't leave us where it found us." Grace doesn't leave us where it found us. But if we can't say with certainty what the ultimate source of grace is, we do know that those undeserved gifts and blessings, they call us to live with gratitude and generosity, with kindness and love. Listen again to what Robbie said. "Since we have not earned Bach or crocuses or lovers, the best we can do is to express our gratitude for the undeserved gifts and to do our share of the work of creation." You know, in many of the sermons I heard Robbie preach, he frequently outlined a kind of transactional model of life and religion that was rooted in the reality of grace. Life, he would say, is a marvelous gift that we have all been given. There might have been nothing at all. It is a gift whose sources and meaning will always, at some level, remain a mystery. But life is most assuredly a gift, and that gift places a responsibility on each of us, a responsibility to be generous, to give back, to do justice, and to tend the gardens of creation. That's our purpose. That's our calling. That's our responsibility. And that is the final part of my answer to the question of how Unitarian Universalists understand grace. Grace isn't simply a gift that we receive. Grace is also a gift that we give and a blessing that we share with others through acts of love and generosity, kindness and sympathy. We act as the agents and, yes, the instruments of grace. We are the receivers of grace and we are the givers of grace. I want to just leave you this morning with a brief story, and I think is one of my favorite stories about one of those moments of grace. And this story also comes from Anne Lamott in her book, Traveling Mercies. The story takes place on a Sunday morning at her somewhat non-traditional, somewhat liberal Presbyterian congregation, but a congregation that really drew people of many different faiths in San Francisco. And this particular story takes place during the time when the HIV/AIDS epidemic was ravaging the gay community and tragically taking so many lives. Sitting alone in the front pew that morning was a man named Ken, who was sadly and tragically dying from HIV/AIDS. Ken had begun attending the church after his longtime partner, Brandon, had died of the virus. Ken was terribly weak, and his body was so thin and even emaciated. But when he smiled, his face, which often looked contorted and pained, became radiant. The church, Ken said, had helped fill the hole left in his life when Brandon had died. Now, sitting not too far from Ken that particular morning was a woman named Renola. Renola was older and had been singing in the church choir for a number of years. Before moving to California, she had grown up a Southern Baptist, and her faith was traditional, pretty biblical, and devout. Ever since Ken had been attending the church, Renola had been pretty standoffish toward him because for much of her life, she had been taught that Ken's way of life was an abomination. Now, during the first hymn, Ken could not stand up with the rest of the congregation, so he sang with joy as he sat in his pew, the hymnal unfolded on his lap. When it came time for the second hymn, the whole congregation had risen, and once again, only Ken remained seated, holding his hymnal in his lap. Renola watched Ken somewhat skeptically for a moment, and then Anne Lamott says her face began to melt and contort. And she went to Ken's side and bent down to lift him up, lifting up, as Anne Lamott says, this white rag doll that she had been avoiding. Renola held Ken next to her, draped over and against her like a child while they sang. And Anne Lamott concludes the story by simply saying, "The sight of Ken and Renola pierced me." And friends, I don't think it comes as a surprise that I see and Anne Lamott sees that moment when Ken and Renola sang together. That was most certainly a moment of grace. Both were touched by grace, a grace that stirred something kind and generous in Renola's heart and that led her to share that kindness with Ken. In that moment, both experienced a spirit of love and healing whose origins we may never understand, but whose power and presence most assuredly blesses our lives. Let me just conclude by saying, as a UU, and I'm a good, skeptical, sometimes doubting, uncertain UU as much as the rest of you, I really believe that grace is real, that grace blesses our lives, and that each and every one of us are both receivers and givers of grace. I don't know if grace is a gift from God or if it is instead a result of the love and goodness that dwells in the human heart. Maybe it's both. But I do know that grace doesn't depend on who you are, where you come from, what you believe, or who you love. Grace isn't reserved for the few or the saved. Grace is a gift that is given to and shared with everyone. Friends, I don't have to tell you that we live in a world that is so hurting and broken and that can too often, yes, feel pretty wretched. But in the midst of that brokenness, let love and compassion, kindness and friendship, do your best to let them be your guides. And may you let grace, beautiful and bountiful grace, always lead you home. Amen. Thank you so much for listening, and blessed be. So I'd like to now invite us to rise in body or spirit and join in singing Here Together going forth. The video and words will be on the screen. Please rise.
We have spent time together, and these
would you please extinguish our chalice? I'd like to leave us this morning with these words of grace from my colleague Sarah York. Every day we receive fragments of holiness, glimpses of eternity, and brief moments of insight. Let us gather them up for the precious gifts that they are, and renewed by their grace, move with love and kindness into the future. Friends, be well. Take very good care of yourselves, of each other, and of this broken world of ours. These are difficult times. I know many in this congregation, in this community, in this world are hurting. In those moments, when the pain and the heartache feels just like you can't take it anymore, slow down. Take time to breathe. Open your heart, if you can, to the beauty and the wonder of grace. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace.